Hello, Northstar here, and welcome to another Hearts Iron 4 Gotterdammer U.S. socialist run, communist run. Socialism is the general ideology, and since the U.S. is democratic socialist, that's what their focus identifies them as. Uh, not, not Marxist-Leninist democratic socialism. No right-thinking person can deny that socialism is the future of human civilization. At the same time, no proud and patriotic citizen of this republic could possibly support a system where government is no longer made by the people and of the people, like our proud forefathers would create a new form of government that combine both. Well, it's a weird way of putting it, and query written by someone who understands socialism terribly well, especially democratic socialism. It's just very niche. A more accurate would be something about socialism without multiple parties degenerates as the party elites become unaccountable. There is democracy in Marxist-Leninism. The problem is it's democracy under democratic centralism, in which debate is only allowed periodically when when overall policies are being reconsidered. They would have party congresses, and party congresses would have representatives who were ultimately elected, but they were elected by other representatives who were elected by representatives who were more local, who were ultimately elected by representatives who were elected by the people at these very local meetings. It was often misconstrued because those local representatives, the way it would work is there'd be debates, public debates over the candidates, like not between candidates, but they would speak, but a lot of it would actually be members of the community speaking for or against someone, kind of almost like endorsements. And then there would also be the candidates speaking. This was particularly well developed in the 1920s. The Soviet Union somewhat degenerated under Stalin, but and came back, but not as well after he was gone. But under this system, the local representatives would elect more regional representatives who elect higher level regional representatives who would end up going to the Supreme Soviet Congresses. In the alt history Soviet past, it even references you can have a path where you don't have a single leader, you just have the Supreme Soviet. That comes under this here, the Supreme Soviet. If you can't read the text, is the name of this focus, which represents empowering the Supreme Soviet so much that you don't even have a chairman at all. But the problem with this, so that you would elect these people at these local meetings, and then there would be an election to confirm these local elections, and there would only be that one candidate that was selected at the local meeting on the ballot, where people maybe who didn't make the local meeting but decided they didn't like the outcome of it. They were supposed to attend, but maybe they had an excuse, they were sick or something. If there were a lot of people sick, say there was a pandemic going on, they'd all show up at the election and they have a yes no vote, so they could vote no, and that would force another local meeting to select a new candidate. Theoretically, that was democracy. The problems were two. One, there was only one party they all existed within, and that party had some ability to endorse candidates, which very quickly led to whoever the party endorsed being the person who was selected. So the system degenerated in that way. And the other issue is there were multiple levels of representation between who was elected and who held power. Although you see the same thing in the European Union today with so-called, quote, unelected bureaucrats, but the bureaucrats are appointed or elected by people who are appointed or elected by people appointed or elected. So it's just too many layers of bureaucracy is the problem. In the European Union, no one would dare to say that Europe isn't democratic. It is democratic. It's just there's too many layers. But the problem of having a single party, of course, the solution to that is to allow multiple parties, to place maybe restrictions on extra restrictions on capitalist parties to make sure they're not being funded by foreign capitalist nations as long as the most of the world is capitalist. But while there might be extra monitoring or surveillance requirements on those parties, to still have multiple parties that can debate different ideas, that's democratic socialism, is you have maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 Democrat parties. If North Korea had also co-opted elements of monarchism into their system, they would technically be democratic socialists, but they're not because they tried to mix democratic socialism, Marxist-Leninism, and monarchism, and they got this really unholy mix of all three, which I think goes by the name Jurche is the name of their ideology, and it's not any of those three, and it's really messed up, and the monarchist elements essentially dominate, so it's not democratic at all. You can't mix monarchism with democratic socialism. It does not work. I mean, I get what they were trying to do, take ideas from like the British system and the American system. It didn't work, and it ended up becoming a dictatorship of a sort. Although there is still a lot of local elected representatives there, it's not an absolute dictatorship as people claim. More of a constitutional dictatorship. There are limits on the power of their leader, which are often ignored in the West. But you know, it's like a constitutional monarchy is still a monarchy. That's, I mean, what they have is kind of almost like a constitutional monarchy. Anyhow, enough of that and explaining these different ideologies. The U.S. Democratic Socialists. I'm doing Democratic Socialist run, therefore it's a socialist run, technically communist in the game terms. But one other thing, I said something last video, but I sound like liberal. What I mean is one of the fundamental tensions between liberalism and socialism beyond just economic systems is between idealism and dialectical materialism or materialism. Materialism predates dialectical materialism. Materialism as an ideology is basic idea that all ideas have their basis in material observable fact. They have their basis in the natural world and atoms and quarks and everything. Nothing can exist outside of physics is the premise of materialism, which is important to the development of physics. Most physicists are materialists for obvious reasons. Idealism says ideas exist and they must be true or not, regardless of the physical world, and it gets weird, and it's a much older ideology. It goes back to Descartes. I think, therefore I am, and all his bullshit. With materialism emerging soon after as a rejection of his ideas, and Descartes was really just rephrasing the works of Plato, Aristotle. Idealism is intimately tied up with religion. If you ever play Stellaris, materialism is an ideology, and people often mistake, oh, it's about material comforts. It's not. It does not. The devs themselves sometimes occasionally misunderstand this because they contract out the DLCs. So a couple DLCs were ran by people who didn't understand this distinction. Versus spiritualism. Actually, materialism is everything as a basis in the physical world, and spiritualism would be idealism. Of course, in Stellaris, the idealists are correct because the shroud exists and has no basis in physics, but its ideas exist outside it. The reality is there's insights you can draw from both, and someday there'll have to be a philosophy that I think synthesizes the two. There have been attempts at this. In history, you get the works of Jared Diamond, who takes bits of the Marxist dialectical materialist way of approaching history and bits of the idealist way, and he tries to combine them to argue why certain ideas caught on at certain times in history and others didn't. It's got space in the physical world, but of course the ideas could have existed at any time, and you see things like the printing press being invented 14 times over human history, but it only caught on once in Europe at a particular time. But you see like ancient printing presses experiment with an ancient crate in 300 BC and like in the Middle East, all these different places that just material conditions weren't right for the ideas. Anyhow, and that's what I meant by sound like a liberal. I sound like an idealist, but no one knows what an idealist is, so, or they think it means, believing in a better world, which is a different thing. It's also another definition of idealism, so I sound like a liberal, I said. Excuse me, because liberalism is based on idealism. Liberalism is the ideology of small to no government, and the premise of this is just that government is bad as an idea with no basis in material reality. The government is just an inherent evil based on idealism. And that's where you get neoliberalism, and that's where you get libertarianism. They can both come from this tradition. Right-wing libertarianism, I'm referring to capitalist libertarianism. Anarchism has materialist routes, actually, to a large degree. Anyways. So I didn't stop the game, but I stopped to get some hot tea because it's cold here. And I Gotta keep up my energy. Did a little off-camera mic, or added a few more templates. They're not different size, but different like priority in terms of elite, regular, reserve. Different names. It's more for my own organization. So I renamed some of these. I had exercise assault divisions. Now it's called exercise infantry, but there's still an assault one. This is for whether I'm training division that's ultimately go up to elite or is going to go up to regular later through field exercises. With the people near DC, they're exercise infantry now because I'm just going to be defending regular equipment priority. The Potomac River, I think this is. Just defending here against someone who tries to cross and take the capital. I should know what that river is called. I've been in the area. But with my long COVID, my memory of it's either this river or is it down here or up here? One of these is the Potomac. I should remember. This is, I mean, I know enough geography and like areas aren't, I'm not going to say where I've looked or not. That would be too much information myself. I should know where this is. Which, anyways, defend the river, defend the mountains. These are not going to be assaulting anything. These, I think, are resized into a larger auxiliary division. They're going to have artillery, but I want lots of org. And there is enough spare combat with when I'm only defending with one division. Multiple divisions could obviously allow more support artillery, but that's overkill. I don't need it to defend mounds with entrenched infantry. And more org bars. But I would like to at least concentrate all the firepower I have and have the highest org possible for the artillery I've got. If it gets very bad, I can pull in reinforcements here. These assault, exercise assault, because I'm actually going to be assaulting this airbase, which is hills. Entrenched infantry in the hills are still hard to displace. Yeah, this is mental organizational. I've also took a look around. These divisions are like green and really under-equipped. I need more stuff in New Mexico, but I also need probably, this is going to be an engineer brigade, which actually the defense value of engineer brigade comes from infantry equipment that the engineers have, not from the support equipment. Put around with enabling, disabling support equipment, and yet the defense doesn't drop that much when you disable support equipment. So an engineer, division with engineers without support equipment equipped will still have most of its defense value. I forget which stats the support equipment actually affects. I'll do this for you guys. Some of you might actually care or be curious. All right, so let's say defense 198, support equipment 222, right? That seems like it's a lot, but if I remove the engineers, oh, no, that implies it all comes from the support equipment. Maybe I was mistaken. Well, I've got a bit of support equipment stockpiled, to say the least. A lot of these 10K 13, I probably need more versions of auxiliaries because they're actually going to be auxiliaries that due to limited support equipment to go around. And since I'm very close to getting rid of everything else, 13, 16, I need probably a 14 and 15. Okay, so if you'll bear with me for just a moment. While this is free, I should do this. There we go. These are divisions that don't have any engineers to save on support equipment, but they do have artillery, because that's kind of necessary for anyone who I don't want to take massive losses. And if I have the artillery in the stockpiles, I might as well equip it, to say the least. Won't bore you guys with more than that. But yeah, I'm only 9 days away from interwar artillery, at which point I'm going to no longer be able to do free divisions. What are other common? I've got 10K, 13K, 16, 12, 6. 6 is a little small to be auxiliaries, but I do think I have, yeah, a light brigade version. Smallest I ever want to go. 9, 12. I need a 10k auxiliary. That's the other one I need. It's actually 12.3. I know. Boring as heck. Oop. Almost had it. I must start training some of those. That I did not want. Hey, did I just drop down the right place? Almost, by accident. What do you know? Here we go. I guess it's a mental reminder of who I have to fight. The Nazis, they are the big bads in this campaign. Unlike my multiplayer where some could argue, who am I going to be fighting? That's dumb. It's actually fairly obvious that... Did something just finish? I think it did. Did I waste overflow? Anyways, it's going to be Austro-Hungarian Empire in the multiplayer game. Here, they're also forming. When they form from Austria, they don't vassalize nations. They quite core them, which is actually much, much worse. Because then they don't have all the separate focus trees, and they don't have the shared focus tree, I don't think, even. Having multiple nations all in one faction, that's called the Austro-Hungarian one, Habsburg Alliance, is better, which only Hungary can do. But yeah, and there it's going to be the Austro-Hungarians or the Italians under Mussolini. One of them is going to be the big bad. It's going to take longer, though, because they'll have to conquer each other and, of course, rebuild from the wars before they're a real threat. That's like going to be a 45, 44 war, probably. Whereas here, this is going to be much earlier. 3 more days and I'll be pulling those. May 31st and 30th. I'll admit they gave a good song to live off, even though obviously they were bastards in real life. Catchy song. Oh. Right. New England, Pennsylvania, New York, and Louisiana. I built industry in Louisiana earlier because of the oil, and they had more time to the war for it to pay for itself. I guess this makes taking New Orleans a higher priority because of all these factories and oil. So Dallas, Houston, New Orleans are all priorities to take. Then Bottle Amp. The Confederacy in the Old South, but without the oil or any of this industry. Without Nashville, Dallas, Houston, New Orleans, or Little Rock. You can't see it, but yeah. Then, and maybe even without Atlanta, they're going to have a really hard time of things. Or Richmond, I may take that. Norfolk. I need to leave them enough victory points to not surrender. If I bottom up, if I don't just aim to win the war, because volunteers need to snag limited interventionism. Although I need 35% communist support before I fire Bowder and take this, because I won't be able to build them more, and I'll need democratic socialism. I have to be work management to be communist. That's the last thing that's got gated. Or have Bowder. So I get the Worker Management Act and 35% communist support. I have no reason to keep Bowder around unless I want to be able to do one or two more raids, and I may replace him with either OSS chief. Where's my William J. Donovan, or probably Whitaker and Chambers. Here, wait, Victor Perlo, because he's an economist. And, I'll need military equipment as the war gets closer with the big one, the Nazis. Alright. so I should be done before this. I like to order them by when they're complete. It's a mental way of keeping track of things. Okay, the Drayton I don't need overflow on. Oh, there'd be a lot if I'm not careful. What's their repair time on the West Virginia? 3.5 months, so that might need to be done before the war. It's good I pulled into the port when I did. Well, the Confederacy doesn't get much Navy, but they get some. They mostly just do a little light naval raiding in the Eastern Seaboard, which will be the task for my convoy escorts in that area. And multiplayer game, I had some subs doing exercises in the area. They just get their training interrupted. It's not very smart. I probably should leave subs here or here in the Caribbean, where I can lay mines in the Caribbean and also try and contest any naval invasions. I don't think I'll have to worry about any of that, so subs operate just fine here. Probably eventually hold them to Caribbean Sea. We're fine the Western Seaboard for now. But it is a longer supply route to get supplies there for those subs, so. But this is where probably I can have subs train uninterrupted. The Atlantic Fleet. It's got a bunch of S-class subs, annoyingly. These should probably go down to the Caribbean if I just want to do exercises. Because I will actually need Navy doctrines and stuff, or want them. In the Caribbean, it's a short trip to actually do naval raiding the Florida coast if I want that. Wait till the storms in the Eastern Seaboard clear up and try and send those subs down. Switch admirals on too. A Scandinavian summer suite. This is nice, inspiring. It's funny. It's theoretically possible. Did I make my way to Europe if I can manage it? And I find some more democracy is still healthy. Well, so maybe some kind of, maybe sustaining this against creeping fascism might actually be more possible than I thought. Of course, growing up my whole life in a country where the U.S., 90s and beyond, the time I was old enough to remember, the seeds of fascism honestly been sown a lot long back in Reagan's day, been a lot earlier than people think. So not a healthy democracy, at least neoliberalism, maybe not fascism, but Reagan was very rabid neoliberal. Neoliberal is a conservative ideology of, cutting regulation stuff, what Reagan was famous for doing. Reagan and Thatcher both screwed up their respective countries. If I end up somewhere, democracy's held there. But I doubt it. And I'm probably be a democratic socialist at the end, which there are actual socialist parties in Europe. And I'm like, I'll just join the socialist parties, even though many of them are so moderate, they're practically capitalist parties. They're very soft on actually phasing out capitalism. Excessively so. You gotta do it at some point, you can't wait forever on that. Here we go. Here's the event why I kept 1,000 rifles in stockpile, because you get a worse outcome on this. You lose stability if you don't even have the rifles. Armory rated. I'll leave that on. A U.S. Army armory. Sorry, Army. U.S. Army armory in Virginia was assaulted and briefly taken over yesterday. The small detachment of guards found themselves opposed by a large armed mob that demanded the keys to the storage rooms. When reinforcements from a nearby garrison arrived, the attackers had already retreated, carrying with them a large number of small arms. Given that the guards were completely unharmed, and the reinforcements took a suspiciously long time to arrive, some in government speculate that this was a coordinated attack. Indeed, it probably was, but why is it... Who is this? Is this supposed to be some fascist, or is this like an image from the Spanish Civil War? It's been reappropriated. Just like some people... William Randolph Hearst was a fraudster and a piece of shit. He's one thing he's infamous for doing. Some people call this misinformation, but this was extensively emphasized at the time, and then people just denied it. And of course, his immediate mogul, he was control of a lot of that narrative back in his day. He showed pictures from famines that occurred during World War I in like Austria-Hungary and claimed it was of the Holodomor in the Soviet Union. No one's denying that famine happened, but he didn't actually send a reporter there. He had a guy, well, he did send a reporter there, but not long enough to take pictures. Let me rephrase that. The guy who was there, like, spent a little time traveling through the country, didn't even stop in the areas that were famine-stricken, just so he could say he'd been in the country. He was found guilty of fraud in a United States court. That's the thing. No one can deny the guy was committed fraud, because he literally was found guilty in a New York State court. Well, a court in New York State, like in New York City, actually, of fraud. But even though that happened, people don't deny that Hearst, who was a known Nazi sympathizer, was playing on sympathies, and the way the stories were written were meant to villainize the Soviets even more than, events might have justified. A story about commissars coming and shooting people left and right that had no basis in fact. What was happening is there wasn't enough food, and there was sometimes food being requisitioned from those who were deemed to be hoarding it, which could sometimes local prejudice and hatred could lead to people saying someone was hoarding when they weren't really, because there were tensions between the Russian-speaking, Ukrainian-speaking population. Of course, this has been politicized now with what's going on in Ukraine. This leads to neo-Nazi elements who go on like social media. Reddit is the worst. They have a huge troll farm that they use to constantly swamp Reddit. And these neo-Nazi elements go and say, they play up the event and keep trying to remind people of it to villainize Russia. It's like, that was the Soviets, this is Russia. First of all, they're different governments. And second, I'm pretty sure Putin would have done so much worse than the Soviets did if he was, today. So I'm not even sure they're doing the most effective propaganda they could, since Putin is far worse than Stalin would have been. If he was around today, and you could compare him. That being said, I do not for a moment support the U.S. wasting its time saying not wasting its time, but saying all this equipment and stuff there, because U.S. imperialism is going to fuck that country up. It already is doing damage. Opposition parties have been banned, the press has been nationalized, public assets being sold off to the lowest bidder. What's going on in Ukraine is deeply corrupt, and Trump was actually kind of correct to call Zelensky a dictator. Kind of correct. Of course, Trump himself is a would-be dictator and is going to be one in truth, so it's pot calling the kettle black almost. It's kind of ironic and made me chuckle. See one evil prick call another evil prick evil. Zelensky has an excuse he's leading a country in time of war, where often war powers and such. What's Trump's excuse? That being said, the socialist line, and maybe this will help you guys understand my view a little more, is there's no war but class war. These wars are just a war between imperialists, Russian and American imperialists. They're both capitalists. They're both imperialists. There is no communism in Russia anymore. Anyone who thinks it's like some neo-Soviet Union is high as a kite. It's not. There's no socialism in Russia now. And I mean, there's like minor socialist parties, but the government is very much capitalist. And some, ordinary people have no real business caring how that war goes. People in the country would be better pushing for peace talks. It really doesn't matter if they have Russia or Ukrainian government in control of the area, they're going to get fucked either way. But the war is causing endless death and devastation. Putin is not another Hitler as much as people want to think he is, and he's not capable of taking over the world as much as people make large in life claims. He does not have, and he's not capable of it, not because he's maybe not evil enough, but because he doesn't have the manpower, the industry. It's physically impossible. Germany was a much more significant economy than Russia is relative to the rest of the world. I mean, it's maybe bigger in absolute terms, but that's because everyone is bigger in absolute terms now. People think Russia is going to attempt world domination, like can actually do it, are insane. They're lying to you usually about the level of threat just to justify military spending, which half of it never makes it to Ukraine. It just disappears in corruption. So, I feel bad for people who are living there. It sucks what they're going through, but saying the guns does not make the situation better, especially when the U.S. is saying guns and trying to avoid peace talks. It was. Give Trump kudos for this one good thing. He is trying to hold peace talks now in Saudi Arabia, which is neutral ground, but also emblematic of everything wrong with U.S. imperialism. Saudi Arabia is, of course, where the Bitter Lake Accords happened, where the U.S. got on board with supporting one of the most rabidly reactionary regimes on earth, the Saudi Wahhabist monarchy, in exchange for oil. I think it was Truman. There's a documentary about it called Bitter Lake that focuses on how U.S. support for a Wahhabist regime has fucked up any hope that the U.S. has of like international influence and credibility, which is true. In a communist rage eventually for stability, but I need improved worker conditions. That gives more. In communist rage is when I can't do improved worker conditions. If I did them now, I'd have more communist support in the long run, but once they flip, I can just do anti-democratic raids and then actually put a democratic advisor in power. Where is he? X. And just kind of mirror this. It's very cynical, but the game, what it really needs are more decisions any nation can take to improve stability that aren't unreal long-timers like worker conditions, because I would rather do that than raid ideologies. It's silly and breaks character of how I want to roleplay. There's not enough ways to improve stability. And it doesn't make roleplay sense unless, like, there's some nation trying to do a color revolution and push capitalist party support. Of course, what also is upsetting is the US has no way to boost communism once they flip communist, because Bowder, that bastard, becomes your country leader. And ever since they made it so a character can't be country leader and advisor for most nations, except Turkey, which still has an exemption from that, where you use the advisor system to select your prime minister, who's the country leader. For other nations, you can't, and so they need to add another communist advisor, because a communist USA can't get to 100% communist support without doing anti-democratic raids. It's impossible. Or doing endless press censorship, which actually requires an insane amount of political power. Or having like a allied player boost ideology. The point is it's really hard. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Okay, June 13th on that. Next thing is June 13th, so I don't have anything to worry about until then. Oh, okay, maybe in 3 days. Ah, there we go, interwar artillery stuff. Hold on a moment. What was I going to be doing here? Pretty sure mobile embers to design better artillery pieces when I get artillery 2, which is what tech? What level's that tech? 39, so I can't do it for a while. But I'm not producing nearly enough artillery to get even hydraulic recoil systems without, so long-term investment has no direct benefit now. Alright. Except for the ability to design tanks and, most importantly, self-propelled artillery with close support guns. That's why I took that tech. Looks like it's improved machine tools now. I'll have to start ramping up military production soon. I only have 10 factories, and that's not nearly enough. 10 mil. Already got a couple at the bottom here. Starts with West Virginia, but I'll have to add more in a bunch of states. I'll probably add in partway in slots on by concentrated industry 2 and eventually 3. How am I doing for time? 36 minutes. I don't want to bore you guys with this, but I do need to design. Maybe you'll find it interesting. Do I want to base it off an existing tank? 5 engine, 2 armor. 4 engine, 2 armor. Probably don't want a lot of engine upgrades. Hell, I'm not sure I want the basic radio. Heavy machine gun could be useful, I suppose, but it's way too expensive for what I'm trying to do. I'm not sure I'm actually going to produce any of these yet. I just need something to save the slot, so to speak. So there's 2 ways I could do this. I could produce something with no upgrades with a close support gun. Or I could create a variant based on this in case I change my mind later. That is heavy machine gun. They both do. 4 modules. Heavy machine gun. Oh, that's the auxiliary heavy machine gun. This is just a main turret. The extra one, it costs 1.5. Actually costs more than the main turret of this. Why would I ever want this? The M2A2 is ridiculous. Piece of garbage. This does have fewer engine upgrades. It's just cost reliability for no 1-man turret. 2, I'm pretty sure self-propelled. Let's see. Obviously, this is going to be new. M2 light. I haven't even... Close support gun. Let's see. Yeah, this costs breakthrough, so I would want to just keep the 1-man turret. It's worth noting super structures cost the same as 1-man. The new DLC, so there's no more reason to do light superstructures necessarily for just making dirt cheap. Adds to defense, true, but these would actually be used in divisions that do more attacking. Guess I can save each point along the way. To close support tank. You know what? I'll just call this 1936 because it is 1936 or 37. Just here we get a soft attack maximized tank that actually is, you know, a tank. Slow, but lots of soft attack. I'll admit. Save as new. I'm never produce these, but I'll keep them around. And T30 HMC. There's actually a name, a preset. I don't know what the T30 HMC was. Actually costs. I'll leave this in place. I don't even know what that is. It's not recognizable. I'm just going to call it 1937 white SPG. SPA would be self-propelled NTR. Yeah, close support artillery. Cool. This is my light self-powered toy. Expensive as heck. Not something I'd ever likely produce. I'll probably wait till I have improved light tanks. But make something a better model off the improved light tank chassis. But I do need this, and I'm just trying to minimize use of something on a medium tank chassis for I call this inner war. W close support artillery. Or actually, I need I'll do a tank and might as well have a tank version too. Is this the medium one-man turret? Yes, it is. Like, is that the light? You can actually do the light. Save. Garbage. Would never produce it. Oh, its armor is 20. It's actually the same as these. Speed of 6.3. Slow though and unreliable. Yep. Neither of these would ever be produced. This is just so I can add it to templates. Cost me, what, 2 XP to design those? I didn't even. If I was going to produce one of them, it'd be this, obviously. This gives it lots of unusually high breakthrough for a close support gun. If I did this, I'd even get decent reliability. Actually, very good reliability and higher defense if I was to use these to defend key positions, but that would cost more army XP. No reason to do it now. It's got very high soft attack for this tech level. Anyhow. So where was I? Take this, my cavalry division. This is just a template after all. Light self-propelled artillery. And these have been turned to motorized infantry. It starts to get more reasonable. And then when I add in some tanks, well, that's a proper tank division. Or be another version that diverges parallel now with its mechanized plus self-propelled for a mechanized division with some artillery support. Anyways, this is an investment in the future. It's obviously just a template, so it should be marked obsolete. Belongs with the artillery based. I have these. Oh, I did it by width for the templates. That's right. It's free to add that, and there we go, a 22 width version. And even though I'll probably never use it, 25 width. All that free. On the basis of interesting, the speed here is actually limited by this equipment. This starts to actually make a decent lots of soft attack. Bit of breakthrough. Bit of hardness. Wouldn't actually use it, but it's not as terrible as some of the others. Anyways, pause it while I do some of this reordering. This has got to be boring, you guys. And welcome back. Quick snack, and I'll attempt to warm my hands with some warm water. I spent a ludicrous, well, I spent a bit of time making a ludicrous number of templates while they're free. And this is just to show you where ultimately this might be headed. Something like this would be used very sparingly because of industry costs, but it's a smaller division because people get the wrong idea. When they want to put line artillery or self-propelled artillery guns into a self-propelled guns into a division, they make these giant width divisions. Actually, you want to use really low width divisions. More smaller divisions means more organization. You shouldn't be using anything infantry based to attack. So this is defensive. This much defense, you're not going to suffer crits. You're just not. And instead of like a 34 width division with, 13 infantry in two of these, which have about the same organization, this will last twice as long. Neither will suffer crits. Um, it'll have more support artillery, more of all these support companies. Um, the hardness helps ensure this defense might make something impervious to crits very late game if it didn't have any hardness, but the extra hardness. And this isn't even with tech support artillery become relatively better. And obviously, it'd have better armored recon. So this is by no means where the stats be, but these actually be pretty bad stats. But this is because a lot of things will make it better, including just better infantry equipment, giving higher soft attack. But this is to give an idea where it would eventually be going. Most of it's ludicrous. Very little bit will actually get built, probably, but I didn't want to find myself in a place someday where I wanted one of these ludicrous things for some reason, and I would have to spend army XP when I could just get it for free now. So, creating the versions that I did it to infantry did put me below 35, so I can't do relief of command this very second. I don't know. That does mean until I get to 35, which is probably about when I'll pause the game, I'll have a little more time with this national spirit, so I may actually go in between this next episode, create some more templates. Same idea, just anything that's free. And most of them will just be marked obsolete because it's highly unlikely I'll be messing with many of these for a long time. I've already got about a zillion versions of infantry of different sizes, some training and exercise versions, and engineer divisions also, and some that have submarines mixed in for crossing rivers. And it's already going to be enough to wean these numbers down to what I'll actually use. Auxiliaries lack engineers. Engineers, they're small, they're for holding. The purpose of engineers is to allow a small division to not suffer crits on the defense, whereas artillery is cost-effective attack, support artillery, obviously, and wider width, just to upsize the division if they have enough time and have extra men for extra org. The wider width divisions in the long run, I'll want to just probably reform everything to low width divisions. Infantry are for defending, and a lot of width does not make sense for that. Heck, even with attacking with tanks and such, because they have lower org, people get too obsessed with very high org, high width divisions, and they'll suffer fewer losses for given fight, but they'll lose in places where other divisions, the more organization would have won. Can't be divided up as many ways. You can't do things like have one attack while the other reorgs to org cycle. Yeah, the AI is bad enough, of course, that most of this is ridiculous min-maxing. Probably take on the world on my own as the US, but let's go. I'm tired. This is almost an end. And indeed, this is almost the end of the tour, which is appropriate. Maybe I'll go do a interstellar transport company or a pop-up dungeon recording after this. Pop-up dungeon has a huge buffer, so you won't actually see what I do for quite a while, but gotta get that stuff done in advance while I'm still feeling like doing that game before I eventually get burnt down on it or run out of stuff with it. Alright. 11 days to construction 2. Interesting question is, what will I do after construction 2? Stuff still ahead of time. I might save up. It makes sense to do a research speed boost ahead of time. You waste more research. Probably Navy stuff. Can't neglect growing my Navy MIO. 11 days is also about when I'll be able to go that spirit. So it's good timing in a way to cut the stream. June 17th-ish. 2 more days and these guys will be ready to deploy. To reinforce, we'll probably add an engineering division here in Oklahoma because I'm going to already have these guys suffering crits, so I'll obviously need to get more equipment, but I don't trust the ridiculously under-equipped divisions I'll have to be able to hold, even with the river and entrenched. 13k, so I can't really upsize these guys. Partly it's about intimidation, so the enemy won't attack just because it takes so long to drive these guys back is the idea. Because they don't know how well equipped these divisions are without testing them, so. Never underestimate intelligence and the value of unequal information in warfare. One more day on that. Blankets have got wrapped around me. Getting a little loose here. Trying to stay warm. Also got ridiculously number of layers of clothes on because I run really cold blood, and so even a slightly cold room, and it's not, I think it's in the 50s here, like low 50s, it's cold in here. You know, a slightly cold room can seriously cause me issues. And this is more than slightly cold. Yeah, if you want to help with that, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. I need to get this channel to where I can earn ad money. And then potentially actually let's check what I have for the size of the engineers. Biggest is 9.3. Yeah, these are probably based on 6,000 men. Actually do have a couple places where I want to just enlarge an existing division. So actually I will go back to this because I got divisions that need to be made bigger here and there. Maybe this to a 14k division. This is going to be an attack assault division. I probably want better, even if it's going to be a staring infantry. Probably like a 14.6k. This defense is solo, it'll suffer crits. So this is the way of getting more rifles out to divisions while also giving more guns. Fortunately, it means more train time, but a lot of them are going to be green regardless of what I do. I did not expect the Civil War to happen so early. The events show it's going to happen way sooner than I thought. Right. I don't have anyone who's exercise. I always have to double check I don't leave a training brigade behind. Nope. Contracts and selling. Oh, I've already done the purchase ones. Some of them are buying my bombers. Nice. Little Entente reaffirmed. Czechoslovakia has today announced that the almost defunct Little Entente alliance system will stand by their commitments. A statement released by the Foreign Affairs announced, or by the Foreign Office announced, Czechoslovakia is not a great power, but it is a regional power. It is our firm belief that an alliance of regional powers can and will prevent the so-called great powers from meddling in our affairs. And it shows the countries that can join that: Romania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, at least they will potentially invite. Or, that's not Hungary. Romania, no, that is. It's part of Hungary, but with the borders in a weird place. Romania and Yugoslavia, anyways. Not Bulgaria or Hungary. Fascinating developments. If you look at focus tree, invite Yugoslavia, invite Romania. We approach them with Hungary, which I think can lead to them inviting. But they brought in Yugoslavia, which is on its historical communist path, for what it's worth. This means if Hitler tries to march into Sudetenland, he'll not only have to fight through these forts, which haven't yet been built, but the forts could be built there in time, hopefully. He'll have to march through, hopefully, some forts, but he'll have to deal with Yugoslavian divisions reinforcing. If Romania joins, that'll provide a route for the troops to actually arrive. Yeah, they really do need to join in order for... Anyways. Well, 13th. Yeah. Yeah. Starting the New Jersey factors right after this. Different song for y'all. Ah. Iran. Baghdad nightlife. What? But Baghdad is in Iraq. That makes a little less sense. Probably because it's just racist stereotypes, the music. Why else would someone have the capital of one country as the nightlife of another? It makes no sense. Baghdad is the capital of Iraq. People who are from the regions did complain about these DLC. About the DLC that had the focus trees for Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. So some people probably think those countries are their arch enemies, even all the events. Those wars are about oil and were built on lies, particularly the invasion of Iraq. Some Americans, of course, don't believe that, even though there's been evidence. They just don't. That's how you know the U.S. is going to fascism, when no amount of evidence will convince people of facts. It's very much a fascist way of thinking. It doesn't matter what the facts are, it only matters what I believe. That's where idealism ultimately leads you. And by idealism, I mean a way of thought where you think ideas exist separate from material reality. The extreme of that is that fascist way of thinking where you try and assert your ideas and make reality match. That's why people will claim bullshit horseshoe theory, but they're fucking full of it. Socialism, fascism lie at the opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. Absolute opposite. One's idealism taken to its fullest, and the other's materialism taken to its fullest. This song is less stereotyped than I thought it would be. Based on the name. Okay, that's good. At least the song's not a stereotype of how people think of Middle East. reminded of this critique of the movie Aladdin. That movie is racist as hell, by the way, like Disney's Aladdin. You won't realize it. Keem did a good thing about how it's just full of racist stereotypes, and it's insane that people show that to their kids. Like, they had no idea. Like, it mixes and matches things from a bunch of different cultures in a way that's nonsensical, and things that are utterly never were true to begin with. It's just watch the thing, go look it up. Hakeem, Aladdin, racist stereotypes. You'll see a whole tears it apart. He's from that guy, Iraq. So he has a pretty decent understanding of some of the racial stereotypes that are in that movie. Like, to the degree you never see in, say, Beauty and the Beast, where the way French culture is portrayed is not nearly as racially stereotyped. It's always the other who is portrayed in this way. A different culture from what the presumed culture of the audience. Tag der Heimkehr. Day of the what? Tag der would mean day of the. Of is essentially implied. Heimkehr. I don't. What does care meaning? K-E-H-R. It's, you see a lot of compound words in these songs that refer to it. I don't know. Gotterdammerung, the name of the DLC, was a reference to an opera, and it literally the opera is about Ragnarok. So another way of saying is the Gotterdammerung DLC could have very well been called the Apocalypse DLC. Or Armageddon, which I guess fits with a DLC that expands the system with nuclear weapons. And also expands Nazi Germany, the ultimate evil. Makes them more of a threat. They're fleshing out them with a more complete focus tree that makes them more ridiculously overpowered than they already were in the long run, though weaker in the beginning of the game. Have to use their focus tree correctly. God, they fixed a lot of the issues with the communist Germany focus tree, including focuses not doing what they were supposed to. My single player got to them in Spartacus League run. I don't know. Since they didn't fix that until this version, I may or may not continue with it, or I may just wait till I go to the next version and try doing Spartacus League Germany again, but with once I've got Graveyard of Empires. I still haven't bought it. I'm waiting for a sale because I'm broke. And I've got this run going, which I won't be abandoning since it's not as impacted by the bugs as Germany, which has a ton of bugs around it. But they didn't fix until they released a save-breaking update, which is annoying. They should have fixed those bugs way ages ago. I'm sure some people are very happy with the bug fixes, but there's still a lot of stuff they missed. I bet they didn't get Austro-Hungary not being targeted by and monarchism, for instance. I mean, I can be a bug report about that, to be fair. People play Communist USA, right? Concentrated industry and construction. And one day away from being able to switch army spirits. Or any Navy things I would obviously do right now. Like, they could do the ship torpedo launchers. Shooting will get me to size 5. I need size 6 before I can apply Newport News to my fleet destroyers. Oh yes, magnetic detonators. Oh, that's a really big one. That'll make my destroyers way more effective. Of course, it'll also benefit the Confederates. They don't. AI doesn't love laying mines, especially Confederate AI could do that. Do this later when they break. So their subs, which they'll be doing a little naval raiding. Let's see, I think I definitely need the magnetic mines. I'm gonna be laying some naval mines. See what I can do. Need XP. 166 days in that. This can't benefit Newport News, only capital shipbuilder. Buddy, eh? It's probably more important I get doing fleet destroyers. Confederacy is less of a risk than the Germans, British, and Japan. Let's see. So even though this might go to the Confederates, if I'm working on it when the war breaks out, they think they inherit my progress. Mining mines and detonators and bracket shooting. To grow my naval on my own. It's gonna be done in 98 and 66 days. Wait, 100. Oh, magnetic mines, because there's no boost from anything. That's a ways. Shoot. Magnetic mines, 1,000 deniers, 1250. This is only 1,000? Shoot. Switch this mines thing to torpedo launchers. Well, this only gives 750. That's the rate I gained from ongoing shipbuilding. Like 6 a day. If I make about 2,000. And be about 100 days of construction, maybe a little longer. Yeah. Needs to be this. Not losing any progress because I just assigned that, and this wasn't something I could boost with Navy XP. Alright. This is to get Notebook News upgraded as soon as possible moment. Stop this for Kentucky. Turn this into it's 15,000 man into something bigger. Those aren't great defense stats, it's true, but far more worried about these guys suffering crits. I need more training. Alright. Oklahoma and New Mexico. I gotta worry about the Western Front area. Those divisions. A little longer here then. Industrialist moves arms factory. Move 1 mill in California and 1 Georgia. At least Atlanta is one of the easier ones to take over, really. Want to rush that. Oh yeah, I got more slots out west now. These don't add to consumer goods, the dockyards, so doing this first. Am I doing Oregon before California? Infrastructure, I know California. Washington, Oregon. Probably it's based on past patterns. It started on the Washington infrastructure, so. California, Oregon, Washington in that order. Reason for that. Actually, I really need a lot of ships. Like historically, there's gonna be more of an emphasis. There's gonna be basically an aviationist during Washington. Actually, this is a reason to do Washington first. Fine, California, Washington, and Oregon. Connect the two, technically. Oregon would just be dockyards. It's done. The reason I'm splitting all three is that way I get infrastructure done, and then before too long, I am using it on multiple production lines, or at least not all, some of them. See, I may rethink this a little later. Yeah, I do need start adding mill, as well as dockyards. Ships have a long lead time, and I have a huge need for them. Also, I'm growing in my own. So it grows not just the quantity, but the quality of ships by adding more dockyards, of course. Alright. Tomorrow I can pre-deploy this. Oh. This is a good song. This tempts me to keep going a little longer, but well, maybe I'll save that for another video. Maybe I'll do one more, but I do need to at least take a little break. For 2nd Infantry has 9.3, which is the 37th really needs rifles. So defense, because I'm going to need to give these guys more rifles. Which by merging in the new men who have rifles. At least some of them. Still not much defense. Get a little from being turned into auxiliary or or a division that has engineers even for the defense because I really need it. I do have the support equipment. Hmm. 36 Army XP. Shoot. Well, I missed that. I may have missed 3 days. I could have been running relief of command. Shoot. Oh well, mistakes get made. I have to be a little forgiving myself, even though I'll be kicking myself for a long time on this. Good time to save. Probably do some off-camera division stuff and then change the army spirit. So, viewers, I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves, and may you always find a gang star to lead you home. Until next time, this is Northstar. Adieu and best luck.